Kat from Twitter says, does God love me even though I'm a drug addict? Does he love me even though I stole and hoard myself out while I was addicted to drugs?
Yeah, God loves you, especially because you are a drug addict. All those things that we do in our addiction, there's motivations behind those things. The main motivation is we're going to do whatever it takes to get the substance that we need into our body so that we don't have to feel anything about anything. And the reality of our situation is that the only way we can do all those things is by pouring more drugs on top of them to make that feel okay. I think that we make decisions that are outside of what God's will is because God gave us free will, and sometimes that will lead into addiction, but ultimately on the other end of it there's a purpose. I mean, God never turns his back on us. We turn our back on him. He's there the whole time. Next question.
How do I stay strong when I've given up my addiction, but I still have to deal with former addicts trying to drag me back into it?
You can look at where your life was in the midst of your addiction, and you can ask yourself, is that someplace I ever want to go back again? And then you have to ask yourself, do these people that in your life that are trying to drag you down, are they important enough to take you back to that place? Now, some people go, well, what if it's my husband, or what if it's my father, or what if it's any of these different things? You know, the ultimate answer is, do you want to go back to that dark place? Is anything worse? Take a minute and go back and touch that place. Remember what it was like in the midst of your addiction and say, these people, are they worth having in my life so that I can go back there and then get rid of them?
Will he help me get past my shame and guilt over the things that I did?
That's really up to you. The problem is we have no problem feeling like God can forgive us. Yes, God can forgive me for what I've committed or what I've done in my life, but we have no ability to forgive ourselves. The real issue with that is the pure arrogance that we have that God can forgive us, but we can't forgive ourselves. So the part of the process is the work you're going to have to do. Part of the process you're going to have to do is you're going to have to reestablish that relationship with God. The reality of that relationship is it is a relationship with God. You're going to have to take those dark secrets that nobody else knows about, and you're going to have to lay them out on the table, and you're going to have to expose them, and you're going to have to clear up the wreckage of what you've caused behind you. That's the reality of what your situation is. And then you have to go back out there, and you're going to have to work with other people. That's what you'll have to do if you want to get past the shame of all those things. And yes, you will get past the shame of all those things.
Will God heal my broken family, my difficulties at work, legal issues, health issues, and my relationship with him?
Never place any limitations on what God can do, but the reality of it is God's not Santa Claus. So if it's not in his will for those things to work out, well then guess what? They won't. But whatever he has in store for you next will be better. There are a lot of things that I prayed desperately for God to heal and make better, and they didn't get better, and they fell apart. And what God has given me since then is so much more of a blessing than anything that I had prior to that. I thank him every day for the way it worked out. You know, we want to hold on to those things. We do, but don't place any limitations on what God can do, and ultimately speaking, when you get to the other side of it, it'll be better.
If God loves me, why did he let me become addicted to drugs and alcohol?
Well, God didn't let you become addicted to anything. You became addicted to drugs and alcohol because you did too many drugs and drank too much alcohol. Well, how can that be God's will? It wasn't God's will. Reality is that you decided that was what was going to make you feel better, and you did enough of it to where you crossed the line and couldn't come back from it. Now, how does God use that? How does God use that? I didn't want to be an alcoholic. I didn't want to be a drug addict. I wanted to be a rock star. I wanted to do all kinds of different things that had nothing to do with alcoholism and drug addiction, but now God gets to use me in my message and whatever I'm doing to reach other people who may have that same problem. God allowed you to become an alcoholic and drug addict because, there's somebody somewhere that needs to hear what you have to say. There's somebody somewhere sitting in a dark room right now worried about what's going to happen to their lives. They're worried about what they're going to do next. And at some point, if you do the work and you get to a point where you have this relationship and this feeling of freedom, then something you say somewhere could make the difference for them. And that may be your only purpose.
All right, last question. Is belief in God required to recover from addiction?
No, belief in God is not required to overcome addiction. Here's the point. You have to believe that you're not God. That's the problem, is that when you are caught up in alcoholism and addiction, you are the only God. The reality is you have to believe in something bigger than you. Now what is that? I say this knowing that evangelical Christians everywhere have all puckered up all of a sudden when I've made that statement. Believing in something bigger than you is realizing that you are not the sole thing that makes the world go around. You are not in control of all these different situations. What does that mean? What is my concept of God? You take a piece of paper, you write down every quality that you would have in a God. A loving, helpful, understanding. Write down those qualities that you personally would have in God and start talking to it. Start putting it into your life. Start making it and understanding that God's grace is where you are today. It's not hard to believe in God if you look at where you've been. I look in the mirror every single day and I say two things. I say, I love you, and I say, if you're it, we're screwed. If you're it, in the grand scheme of things, if you're all that exists, then we're in so much trouble. It's not hard to believe that there's something bigger, and that concept is God. If you look at where you've been, you look at the darkness and the voices in your head at night, when nobody's there to answer them but you, why not let there be a God? And on top of that, if you believe in God and you're wrong, then what happens? You die and nothing happens, right? I don't feel like it's that much of a stretch to believe that something bigger than you can control things. Pray to that thing, make it what it is. The person who's asking these questions is not in a good place right now, but you know what I say? You're on an adventure. I'm happy for you. You're on an adventure. Your life is going to change dramatically if you do the work, and it's going to be exciting, and it's going to have so much meaning. It may be dark right now, but it's not as dark as it could get. Anyway, thanks for letting me take the time today, and thanks for letting me talk to you again. So, until next time.